This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast, the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's Partnership Coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Irina from Galactic Fed. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on your show. I'm really excited.
I appreciate it. All right, so first, we're going to start with a game, but I want you to describe yourself a little bit, maybe differently than I would. Any kind of thing relevant on your business journey that you think the audience should know. And yeah, just introduce yourself how you would.
Totally. So I'm the co-founder of Galactic Fed. We're a top 1% digital marketing agency. We are a fully remote company, which I guess is a little bit pretty common these days since the pandemic, but we were remote since before the pandemic, before it became mainstream and really cool. I'm a physicist by training, like way back when. Briefly worked at the Large Hadron Collider. This was like 15 years ago before they turned the machine on, and did all the groundbreaking discoveries there. So it was really a humbling experience for me to be in that scene for a while. And basically sleepwalked into marketing about a decade ago. It is honestly a very scientific field, and I love applying that type of thinking towards what oftentimes people see as more of an emotion-based science. Um, so that's just a little bit about me, about the company. I'm a digital nomad. I love to be nomadic. I've traveled to a lot of places on my own. I've been to about 60 countries by now.
Well,
Mostly, yeah. I've done a lot of sort of unconventional style travel. I especially in my 20s, I did a lot of hitchhiking. I really followed Anthony Bourdain's quote to heart, the one where he says, "If you're 22, young and fit, um, travel as far as wide as you can, sleep on floors if you have to, learn how people eat and live wherever you go." I just love that quote, and I've tried to build a life that centers around that idea as much as I can.
I really love hearing that. I think that I think it's very important for everyone to get life experience like that too. I think to be able to learn about the world is is such a privilege, and it's so vast. It gets you out of your head of what is the norm.
Totally. And also it helps reinforce the idea that wherever you go, there are great people. Like good people are everywhere. And something about putting yourself out there and making yourself vulnerable to the world gives you that experience of seeing like, wow, goodness is to be found everywhere on earth, like regardless of where you go. So I'm with you. It is a privilege, and it's a privilege that I hope more people get to pursue because it really does expand their perspective and takes them out of their head. You're absolutely right.
It's such an amazing experience. So I'm happy that you've able to have that, and I'm sure that it definitely has contributed to your growth as not only a person but also professionally too. I think that it's a very great thing to have. So thank you for sharing that. And I also want to,
Yeah.
so to get us our creative juices flowing, I want to start with a little segment we like to call Marketing Mythbusters. So it's just one question, but it's basically it's all up to you. So what I'm going to ask you is, what's a commonly held belief in the industry that you think is completely wrong?
Mm. Well, I don't know if this is as common of a belief anymore these days, but it used to be that people were absolutely zealous about link building as a strategy. And that
Uh-huh.
works. That still works. And I'm not gonna deny its efficacy in certain instances. But with LLM style search starting to really dominate, right? Mass adoption happening there, LLMs don't care about links. The internet cares about links because pages link to each other. So for sure, when you're targeting, showing up in Google search, links are still a big deal. But I think we need to definitely sort of balance the scales there on priorities a bit more and look beyond links, look more towards just high quality branded mentions as kind of the true north when it comes to looking for how to rank your site in LLM style search. So
I
I'd say that's a
definitely
myth. Maybe not a myth, but a myth that's a little bit that needs to be reevaluated in your strategy.
I definitely understand because I think that link building has been even now I think it is kind of like this centripetal point that everyone is making, but you even look at I don't know if you've seen the recent article in HubSpot of
Mm.
the queen of link building has their search traffic has gone down a an insane amount in the last few months. And they're usually what people are studying. Like they were always the top the top dog for learning in that space. And I think it's so interesting how there can be changes in the industry or changes how we search or how Google does something specifically and that can reorient the entire industry and how it works.
You know? It is, and it's funny because as the tech gets more sophisticated, ironically, we're getting just closer and closer to our roots. People are craving authenticity more than ever now, with the internet being just inundated with AI generated stuff. And also, even with this link building idea, it was never about building links, right? It was always about earning high quality mentions from relevant websites. So if you strip away the link, and you just look at what's still there, what still matters, that branded mention, you're really just going back to the very roots of what PR used to be, uh, which is just a high quality mention from a site that genuinely values what you do.
I really do like seeing that. I like going back to the roots because I do think that it is more authentic. I think that a lot of people are focusing on the wrong things sometimes, and not really looking to create good partnerships and relationships and rather just looking to get their name out there. And I think that people do, or maybe they might have not before, but I think now everyone being in the digital age and being so accustomed to it, or maybe not accustomed to it, but just very it's very in your face all the time. I think that they can see through that now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of nice to see that
That's
people are craving authenticity more because I think that the brands that deserve don't quote me on that are getting the attention. I hope that that continues to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a refreshing change, right? People are getting tired, like you said, of being marketed to, right? Being sold to. So I'm really excited to see this new time where people are embracing, like I said, an authentic voice, using the tech in an intelligent way, not outsourcing their thinking to AI, but rather using it as a tool to sustain and push forward their authentic brand's voice. And just having fun and getting creative with the storytelling and all the things you can do now with the tech coming out. There's so many possibilities if you just approach it with intentionality.
Yeah, I like the idea of people experimenting with new tools and new ideas, but also maintaining their unique brand, and their unique voice. I think that, um, you're able to do both of those things, and I think some people are fearful of using new technology in fear that they're not being authentic, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think you have to sacrifice authenticity in order to explore new realms of your industry. I think that's something that
Totally.
were previously worried about, though.
Yeah. I think, each age is going to have its waves of tech coming in, and it's up to you, the human being with the brain, to figure out how to use it. And again, that comes back to having a clear understanding of what your brand is about. What problems is it trying to achieve? What message does it want to send out to the world? And I think every founder should take the time and really like put away all the tech, spend some time in silence, and try to understand what that is to them before they start, you know, opening up to using the tech to carry out that message. Um, and I think that goes a long way. Um, Storytelling is more important than ever before. People want to see not just the success stories, but they want to see the raw human experience behind the brand. So I wouldn't shy away from conveying all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly in your storytelling. People want to see the real story behind the brand, not just the Instagrammable version, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And I think that gives your brand a lot more power because people respect the journey, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that um it's very hard for people sometimes to I think they're scared to share their lows, but I think that people appreciate learning that you've grown from a moment, especially clientele learning that
Yeah,
you're an actual human being and that you have faults and you're not perfect. I think that obviously you shouldn't share every hiccup or bump in the road on social media. That might seem
totally.
like you're
Sure.
screwing up a lot more than people want to
And it's
see.
about how you
But
share it too, right? People want to
exactly,
see a success story. They want to see
they
a
want to see
redemption arc.
inspiration.
They want to see inspiration. They want to see a brand or whatever, a story that shows how there was a local minima, and then there was a rise from that. There was growth. Those are inspiring stories, and people resonate with those. So it's all about how you present the story. But I think showing a certain degree of vulnerability as a brand goes a long way in just being more powerful in how you share that story.
Definitely. So wait, so speaking of stories, what motivated your career shift? I think that it's so interesting to hear someone go, I do see unusual career paths in marketing very often. I think that that's marketing is
Yeah,
it's just a field
it
that
is
some
a
people
funky
find,
space, right?
but I'd love to
Yeah.
hear your background.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Romania. My family and I, we came to the US when I was very young, refugees. Classic immigrant story. Came with two suitcases, started all over again in the States, grew up in Chicago. I was very lucky to be raised by artists, so had a really interesting sort of creative backdrop to my childhood. And then when I ended up going to college, what really excited me was science. So I ended up majoring in physics. Um, I think at the time I was mostly interested in just learning how to think in this more like logical, scientific way. And science really called out to me. It answers a lot of big questions about it, what it means to be human, what it means to be alive, to live in this world. Um, So I was initially drawn to particle physics. I was lucky enough to get a fellowship in Germany when I was 20 years old, at the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. Um, and while I was there, I had some revelations. I realized that for me, for whatever reason, the most important thing is freedom of movement. Like the open road was calling to me. I realized early on that I am nomadic in spirit. And while physics is always very close to my heart, at the end of the day, it was an office job.
Mm.
And I just really wanted to carve out a career for myself that takes me out of the office and gives me the freedom to be anywhere I want to be. So initially, when I first embarked on a career in marketing, that was the true north. I wanted to have this freedom, and luckily, marketing is an industry that was a very early adopter of remote work. Um, I was very fortunate to get a position at the unicorn tech startup TopTal. That's where I started my career in marketing, and they are also a fully remote company. So I sort of learned from the best. And it was really fascinating to see how such a vast ecosystem can operate entirely virtually, right? Um, so that's kind of how I started my roots. And once I got going in it, I realized marketing is pretty cool. It borrows on a lot of different fields. I like to say it's a bit like applied anthropology. There's this kind of scientific side to it too, because
Mhm.
you often run experiments. You form them by running establishing a hypothesis and then running an experiment and sort of pivoting for that. So there is a bit of that science to it too. It is in its best form highly data driven, but it's also a very emotional art. You are speaking to people's emotions because emotions are what ultimately drive our decisions. Um, so it's sort of a mix of everything that I've really grown to sort of love and appreciate about it.
It's incredible to have found something that kind of hits all of these parts that you really like about life, like just you grown up with art and then also science and then also this marketing brain where you get to have that human-centered approach, but you get to have all of those incorporations. I think that I think that's the lovely thing about marketing and why I see so many non-linear career paths into marketing is that
Yeah.
it is such a vast thing that so many people can improve upon. There are so many different backgrounds that are able to get into the marketing space and do really well, and it's all from different approaches, and I think it is
Yeah.
the coolest thing ever to observe, and I love talking to people on this podcast to get to learn, like, what is your everyone has their unique way of doing things because they have these different backgrounds, and that's why it's so
They add their
unbelievably
own flavor to it, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And that's why every single marketing company out there is unique in its story, right? Depending on what kind of flavor the founders added to it, right? If you've got a physicist founder, you're going to have a more data-driven approach, right? A more scientific approach. Someone comes in from a fashion background, there might be more emphasis on creative and aesthetic
Mhm.
and the way it captures the emotion. Like it's really fascinating, like you see to see how people add their own personal spin to it, right?
It is really very cool, and that's why I really enjoy talking to people in this space and learning about everyone's unique perspectives. And so you actually mentioned something that I was going to ask about. So having worked at Top Toll, which was also a remote agency, what kind of things did you take from that experience and put into your agency? And what kind of things did you decide that you really didn't want to take?
I think I think there's a lot of I was really fortunate and I'll always be really grateful for them taking a chance on me.
Mhm.
Um they're not, just to be clear, they're not an agency. They're a unicorn tech startup.
Mhm.
They're a huge marketplace of some of the top talent in the world. And it was really an interesting place to work because like I said, I had never worked in a fully remote company in my life. In fact, it was the second job I'd ever had in my careers. And so just seeing how people could collaborate across so many different time zones, so many different countries, across different cultures, and come together in this very interesting sort of asynchronous way of communicating. That was really interesting to watch. And I think this lends this whole remote model of building a company a lot of strength, right? You're able to search for the best people wherever they are in the world. You're not limited to a location, as the more traditional brick and mortar companies are. And B, uh, by having folks spread across so many different places, you have an advantage because if you set up a really great way of communicating asynchronously, you can essentially be working around the clock on the problem, just,
Mhm.
you know, in different time zones. So it makes you really effective as an organization. So watching this from the inside, as a youngster starting out in this space, it was really interesting to watch how people collaborated and were able to work in this asynchronous way. Um, Things that I improve upon, I mean, I can't really think of anything. It doesn't immediately come to mind.
Mhm.
But I think definitely as you get bigger as an org, it does become more and more challenging to lead and manage a group of people. And I think that's the case with any organization. That's not unique to my experience. And those are definitely like things to learn over time. Sometimes you have to kind of go through it yourself and have your own lived experiences. I have to understand the challenges that come with being able to grow a large scale remote company, if that makes sense.
It completely makes sense. I think there's always an adjustment period for how you structure an agency, especially when it grows. I think you always have to continue to adjust. I don't think that
Yeah.
I think it's always a consistent work in progress, and I don't think that's a negative thing at all.
Totally. It is a work in progress. And sometimes it does feel like you're building the airplane while it's flying. So you have to be prepared to like learn the art of improvising at times. Be able to quickly acquire new skills, train yourself in things you might not know at the time because there's going to be a constant series of unknowns coming at you that you're gonna have to figure out yourself. There won't be any book or anyone there to tell you. So you have to be able to embrace whatever that unknown is if you're gonna embark on a journey like that.
Yeah, of course. So, having that completely remote style, how are you able to foster um balance between work and life? Because I know this is something that's very difficult nowadays that we work from home. I think that either we work too much or we don't work at all. I think that it is difficult for people to be able to maintain like something that makes sense for them. How do you foster this with your employees as well as yourself?
Sure, yeah, that is a great question. And that's also a work in progress, like everything else. Um, this is gonna sound really like low hanging fruit, but I used to not separate. Like I have a house, right? And I used to not have a specific dedicated place where I work. Now I do. I learned the importance of this during the pandemic when life work balance got a little fuzzy. So having a dedicated workspace, I think is huge. Also leaving your house is important. Yes, out to coffee shops, like find places outside of your home to work, like coffee shops, co-working spaces, libraries, even just a nice park bench. Like there's so many places that you can go outside of your home to get stuff done. And I find it really helpful to do that a few times a week. The change of scenery, it does something to your brain. It inspires you. It resets the thought. Like it takes you out of the problem you're trying to solve, which actually is important to do. Because if you hyper focus on what you're trying to work on, you might get a little burnt out on it, right? So that change of scenery is really, really important. Um, I try to get up every like okay, in my case, every 15-20 minutes, I'm up and moving around. I love pacing around when I do calls. I oftentimes like to do calls while I'm on long walks outside. Um, Something about walking also, I don't know, inspires you and gets you
Yeah.
sometimes to the place where trying to where you're working to solve a problem more effectively. I love going on long walks every day. No matter what weather is here in Chicago, I do it. Um, Trying to think what else. And then setting hard limits on like device free moments, I think is really important. And this doesn't just apply for people working from home. It applies to everyone, right? I have device I have yeah, I have device free nights. Um After 5 on many nights, I try to be device free if I can, which I know sounds gratuitous, but I found that it just makes me a lot more like refreshed. It's just better for my emotional well being. Um, and sometimes I'll take a day or two on the weekend that is totally device free as well. Um, I meditate every day. Um, every morning, I start the day with 10-15 minutes of just silence where I try to focus on the sounds around me, the bird song outside my window, just outside of my mind, right? The present. And I find that to be very grounding. Because I know a lot of us, the first thing we do when we wake up is we check our phones. I tried really hard to fight this instinct. And those 10, 15 minutes in the morning, they kind of help set me on the right course for the day.
Yeah. No, I think that there's a lot of great tools that you mentioned that you're able to implement so that you're not overwhelming yourself. I think that the the digital age is something that is very cool and interesting, and technology advancing is something that is incredible, but I think that it is almost
Sure.
natural for us to be involved in at all points of the day. And I think that it's very normalized almost to do that at this point. And so I always ask because I think that that's one of the biggest difficulties that people in agency life have, especially because I think that even corporate environments, depending on the job, have like a start and an end to work. And I think that
Yeah,
agency is a little more fuzzy, especially when you own an agency. I think that is even more difficult because it's your baby and you want it to thrive and you want to put as much work in it as
totally.
possible.
There's a lot of
It's
personal
like
investment, right? So you have to
exactly.
be strong enough to set those boundaries for yourself
Mhm.
with the idea that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And you need to, you need to sort of train and take care of yourself like an athlete would, right? Because you need to have that health in the long term to be able to sustain the journey, and be that leader that your team needs you to be, right? So that part of that involves taking good care of yourself. Self care is never a waste.
Exactly. And burnout is a very real thing. I think that it's I'm happy that it's a more accepted term nowadays and I hear it a lot more.
Yeah,
It is it is so
people
unbelievably
definitely talk
real.
about it more now, which is good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's a word
absolutely.
that everyone's heard of, at least I think now, which is really great because I think that um there was this semblance before of we just need to you just need to hunker down and continue to do it because that's what life is and that's what work is, and then you're
Right.
80 years
Tough it
old and
out.
miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, how do you foster this like healthy dynamic with your team as well? Like do you communicate with them these ways in which you do this, or is there a way in which you manage them where you allow them to work in a way that like makes sense for them? Like what is your kind of model?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's a lot of answers to that question, but I'll get
Mhm.
into it just a few ideas. So we have a very international company, fully remote. We have folks spread over 18 plus time zones, just so you get a sense of how we are.
I need to
We're not,
worry in time zones.
I didn't get there until I had to work through all of them, right? Uh, um, but I know, right? But what's really interesting, because I had brought up the asynchronous comms earlier. Um, we have worked really hard to build a company where people feel comfortable working in their own working style, in their own learning style, um, where they're able to work in their schedules and where we're able to also build this sort of collaborative atmosphere where people can communicate asynchronously. That gives us a real edge, I think. Um, and we do our best to encourage folks to take time off when they need it. Our HR department is of course doing all the things that HR traditionally does. But we also add an extra layer to it, which is around self-care, and around, managing burnout, managing, emotional health, all that stuff. So those are always hugely important to us, because you have to keep your army well fed. I mean, if it's gonna go to battle every day. So, everyone needs to be in a place where they're emotionally, well, in a good place. And I think this has really helped us just build a loyal team that stays with us through many different experiences, market conditions, pandemics, AI, whatever comes our way. We feel united in being able to rise up to that challenge because we know that we have each other's backs. Um, and we've also done a lot to sort of foster a cool and inclusive culture. Like I said, we're a very international company. We have folks from all over the world in the team. And we've really wanted to embrace this internationality. We've set up a lot of clubs within our Slack org, catering to different interests, ranging from like pet owners club to parenting topics to outdoor hiking to cocktails hour to the list goes on and on. Anime lovers so we try to not only foster a really close working bond between our people, but also, spend time having fun together, talking about things that are outside of work, that are our passions. Because we cannot meet up in an office like a traditional company would, but we can still form those types of relationships around common, passions and interests. Um, and I think another cool thing is since we do have team members located in certain hubs around the world, like let's say Cape Town or Toronto as examples. It's really awesome to see when people meet up in real life and go beyond the screen to actually like connect in real life, share a meal together, have some drinks together. So we try to encourage, I think, as much of that as we can, uh, so that people can also, get to experience that real world interaction, which is still really important whenever we can. Um, so I
I
don't know.
really
Those are just a few things top of mind. I'm sure I left out a lot, but that's the big stuff.
Yeah, well, I think that's incredible. I think that it is really lovely to foster that. You know that people are comfortable and happy at work when they're comfortable with going outside of work to meet people from work and actively doing it on their own accord. I think it is a little scary sometimes to have something organized by work and have to go to it if you're especially like a very introverted person. I think that's really
Sure.
scary, but
Yeah.
know that there's that comfort when you're choosing to do it. Like have for example, my co-host Daniela, she lives in El Salvador. And
Cool.
we have been talking about getting together for the longest time. I am super excited. I think it's happening this summer, but it is
Nice.
so lovely to make a friend at work that is truly valuable and to you in more ways than just working together. So it's really nice to be able to make those
Yeah.
connections.
Yeah. And you're right. It is definitely a plus when people like out of their own accord choose to meet up, right? I'm really glad to see that, and I think it is a strong sign of community forming. So
So that's a great it's a great way of knowing that that is working. Like remote work doesn't have to be completely I think it is isolating at points, but I think that when you're comfortable and happy with your team and what they're doing and who they are, I think that you're more likely to go out of the box, meet these people in person and enjoy making friends. And I think that's really lovely because I think
100%.
like have a hard time sometimes building connections in these experiences. And so I love to see that it's still possible and people still do it because that means that the environment is comfortable for them to feel that they can.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. The way we like to think of it is, there's always going to be stress coming in from the outside. Unhappy client, blah blah. Whatever's coming in from the outside. But within the org, we want this to be a sanctuary for people where people feel comfortable to express and be their true selves. They feel seen and heard by their managers. Their managers are empathetic and kind and carry with them a lot of lived experience, having been in the shoes of their people. So I think those are all really important things where you feel, like you said, you're in an environment where you are comfortable sharing your honest feedback about something. And when
Yeah.
you create an environment like that, that's only in the best interest of the org as a whole. We need to have an environment where people are comfortable speaking up if they see an area of improvement somewhere. Not just to like save face or to keep good
Yeah.
graces with their boss. That's the worst type of thing you could create, right? So it's really important to create and foster a place where people are able to be and to be their honest selves.
Yeah, I really resonate with that takeaway, and I do think that um if more businesses were willing to listen to their employees, they would be doing so much better and improving at such a more rapid pace, because that is,
Yeah.
they know best. I mean, if you're not listening to them, then what are you doing? I mean, I hope at least you're listening to your
Yeah.
clients.
That would be the bare minimum, but you're absolutely right. I mean, they are the ones in the trenches doing the work day to day. So, um, it's very important to not let your ego or your blind spots get in the way as a leader, and to listen to your team. Absolutely.
Well, I think that this is a perfect note to end on, because I think it's a really good message that people should take away from this. And we're a little over time, but that means it was a really good conversation. So I appreciate you coming on with me today and sharing all of this knowledge. I
Absolutely.
really learned a lot, and it was an incredible chance to have you on here.
I feel it goes both ways, Shannon. Really a pleasure chatting with you, and thanks so much for having me on your show.
Thank you. And also thank you everyone for listening or watching. Don't forget to check out other episodes to get to learn from this podcast like I get to every time. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely day.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.